Ladies and gentlemen, the house is now open. The house is now open. Thank you.
You're listening to Unseen Theatrics with Clinton Kamak.
Hello and welcome to today's episode. They reinforce the vocals, band, orchestra and playback tracks. They'll adjust the gain, timbre and the dynamics of the audio. Each is manipulated independently through the console, controlling the level of output the audience hears. Today we are talking to a front-of-house audio engineer. Mick has been a regular front-of-house engineer at the Adelaide Festival Centre over the past 20 years. Please welcome Mick to Unseen Theatrics podcast for today. Hi Mick.
Hello Clinton, how are you?
Yeah, good. And yourself?
Yeah, not so bad, thank you.
That's good. We may as well get straight into it because there's plenty of stuff to talk about being a front-of-house audio engineer. Tell me some of the responsibilities that you have as a front-of-house audio engineer.
I'm primarily as a front-of-house engineer and operator. But essentially, yes, I'm the person out behind the sound console, out in the auditorium.
Yep.
Essentially, when you do become front-of-house engineer, you basically your head sound person for the show itself. So you're in charge of all sound aspects. I mean, primarily you're in charge of mixing the show and making it sound as good as it can possibly be for everyone in the auditorium.
Yep.
Every now and again, you also have to provide fallback for the performers on stage, but more often than not, subject to the size of the show, sometimes that'll be taken care of by a monitor operator who will be on side of stage with his or her own sound console, and they're in charge of fallback wedges and or in monitoring for the performers on stage. And that person will also be technically they're subordinate to the front of house operator. Let's see. So we're usually in charge of basically mixing the show. We usually take care of comms and cue lights, sometimes vision as well.
Mm-hmm. That's just stage vision for stage manager?
Yeah, and sometimes if there are any additional cameras set up, certainly within things like musicals or theatre pieces. So we usually do a little bit of stuff. Yeah, and it's just basically making sure it all works. So dealing with all paperwork, keeping to schedules, and making sure that everyone every member of the sound team gets an appropriate break. Getting everything done on time. Just communication amongst, just making sure that there's good communication amongst all staff, that everyone knows what's going on. So making sure everyone gets all the paperwork. You kind of become the go-to person. If anyone has any questions, it's like, well, I don't know, come see me.
Cool. All right. Tell me why you enjoy being a front-of-house engineer.
There is a lot of variety.
Yep.
I mean, it can be a really fun job. And I mean, working with a really talented performer, it can actually be a really fun experience. I really enjoy mixing music. I think that's fun. It's not a 9-to-5 job. I mean, the hours, that's kind of a good thing and a bad thing simultaneously. But there's plenty of variety. You do get to meet really interesting people. I've met some fascinating people, and hell, I've even met some heroes over the years. Like I spent 5 days working with John Cleese from Monty Python. Things like that, make you go, oh my God, this is fantastic. There's been touring opportunities. So I've got to, travel and see, multiple different places throughout Australia and internationally. And just see how things are done in different places. I do find it fascinating. It's one of those jobs where, you also never really stop learning as well. You can never really kind of just reach a point where you go, right, I know everything, that's it. I don't need to learn anything else. You're constantly learning all the time. So you've kind of got to keep an open mind. New technologies are coming out all the time. And like in the past 10 years alone, it's completely different now. And I mean, if I could go back in time and say, hey, you're going to be doing stuff like this now, it would be, really? Yeah, it's quite remarkable.
Tell me a couple of the things that you've got in your gig bag that you've got to have with you out at front of house or when you're working on a show.
Two things I definitely always have. I'd say these are like bare minimum requirements if I'm doing a show. Decent pair of headphones, decent pair of monitoring headphones, not just like, kind of the crappy ones that I'd use with like, my iPod or my phone or something, like a decent pair of monitoring headphones. But the one I always use for front of house are a pair of Beyerdynamic DT770s.
Okay.
They're very reasonably priced, but they're really closed. So, when you put them on, it kind of really closes you off from the outside world.
Yep.
You can also turn them up really loud as well.
Yep.
They sound nice, pleasant, and flat. They're fairly popular with a lot of sound people. I mean, it's totally subjective, and I know that a lot of people have their own preferred brands and types and everything else like that.
Yep.
The other thing I definitely have out the front with me is a switch microphone.
Okay.
It's a Shure SM58, just with a switch on it, and just a short cable. Yeah, perfect for testing the system, talking to any performers on stage, tuning a PA if there's no other equipment available. Also helpful for doing any announcements, for any pre-show announcements, or talking to anyone on stage if you need to. Also, in the event of an emergency and like you have to stop a show and the stage manager isn't available to make an announcement.
Okay.
But then, elaborating on that, I do have a laser measurer and just like a standard tape measure. Things like that are really helpful. Some basic tools, some small screwdrivers, a little multimeter. That's also really, really helpful.
Is that just for continuity of cables?
Yeah, continuity of cables or continuity of equipment, things like that. Testing batteries or testing like electronic components for small failures. A little signal generator and or continuity tester as well, where you can just plug cables into and just check that whether or not things are actually soldered correctly or not out of phase or whatever.
The signal generator, is that on your phone or is that something you've brought?
Conveniently, most digital consoles these days actually have signal generators built in. However, sometimes it is useful to just have like a portable one that you can even just move closer, further down the signal chain and just go, I'm just going to send some signal down here so I can ascertain at what point in the chain is something actually broken. Is it actually working here? How about here? How about here? Oh, wait, okay, it's not moving between these 2 points. The problem is here. So, yeah.
What about iPad and router?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, I work primarily in a series of venues that covers Festival Theatre, Playhouse, the Space Theatre, also Her Majesty's Theatre. So we've actually got our own internal Wi-Fi network dedicated to sound now. So I don't so much need the router when I'm working there anymore. However, when I'm working outside, then yes, I would definitely take my own router. And an iPad is actually... it has actually become borderline essential now. There's a lot of consoles that do have an iPad app for them, like the Yamaha ones, the Digico ones. It's not imperative, but it can make life a lot easier. And certainly for doing monitors, also the ability to tune stuff, and you've got like a real-time analyzer appearing on screen so it can help you identify any problem frequencies and then notch them out, doing tuning. And I do remember the first time I saw it in play. I think it was, when the iPad it had come out and it had been out for like about a year or so at that stage. But a colleague of mine had it working with a Yamaha M7CL. And I thought, oh, wow, that is brilliant. That's a fantastic idea. Every console's now got an app for it. So, and I mean, it's great as well. Most of the time, they're just free. Just download it on your iPad, make sure you've got a router, and away you go. Connection to consoles can be a little bit fiddly and a little bit annoying at times, but with every version of firmware that comes out, there's usually improvements in making it a bit easier.
Cool. Is there any other apps or software that you use regularly out at front of house?
Two that spring to mind, a program called Smart. Smart, but it's double A. So SMAART. Basically, real-time analyzing software. So basically, you just need like a sound card, a measurement microphone, and then signal, like a direct signal from the desk. And then, basically you can tune your entire system. You can check phase and polarity of everything. You can, leave it running and just give you like a constant real-time analysis of your show. I also have like a small handheld real-time analyzer as well. It's just like it's a reasonably cheapish one, made by a company called Phonic, where it does a fairly similar thing. The only difference is that it's basically portable. It's got a microphone and a real-time analyzer, but I can also check a couple of other things as well and literally walk around the room. Another bit of software that I definitely use all the time is Shaw's Wireless Workbench. Whenever I'm using anything with radios, oh man, that's a really, really great bit of software. It makes it ridiculously easy. And the fact that you can put in all manner of manufacturers and just, hit work it out, and it will tell you available frequencies, but you can still change all the parameters. And I really like that bit of software. I think that's wonderful. That saved my bacon on a number of occasions. Every time there's a festival that comes up, I use that quite religiously, because I know that there's going to be multiple venues all running shows at the same time.
Cool. I hope you're enjoying this week's episode. Tune in next week as we talk to a vision switcher.
You need as much information as you need to hit the points you need to hit. And you do it early enough that if you do find something's wrong, you've got time to try and fix it. The more you work together with everyone, the better off everything's going to be.
All right, let's start talking about an actual show.
Sure.
Pre-production, what kind of information, contact, and that do you have with the company, producer, client in pre-production?
Quite a bit. I mean, a production coordinator usually takes care of the majority of the information from the client. They're always the first and main point of contact. Yep. However, that said, for specific sound requests and requirements and things, often we do contact and liaise with the company. Usually, if they've got a representative sound person, or they just have a production manager, we usually talk to them directly. So either via phone call or via email. Mm-hmm. As early as possible, and find out if they have any specific requirements. I mean, it's always incredibly helpful to get basically a technical specification list, tech specs from them, and also a mud map, which is basically just like a picture of their setup on stage. The mud map is always great. Picture speaks 1,000 words, so you can also work out where everything needs to be, where it's got to go. Things like, who needs microphones, who doesn't, who need, what performer needs how many lines on stage, who needs foldback, what does it need to be, all that stuff. You can ascertain a whole load of stuff from the drawing. It makes life really, really easy. But in the tech specs, there's always things like microphones, specific types and different things, and stands, fallback, and the type of PA that they want to use, any desks, specific desk types that they'll use, radio requirements, and their preferred brands of things. Okay. A lot of companies will often be brand specific sometimes, like they're happy with one brand of microphone but not with another, same with PA and just about everything. So that's we always adhere to that kind of thing. The most important bit is ringing the client or emailing them and just double checking. Okay, so is this picture or list of tech specs the most current and up-to-date one? Because the amount of times where we've set up everything as per the diagram, and then the performer rocks up and goes, "Oh, so why is it set up like this? Oh man, we haven't set it up like this for like years." And it's like, who gave you this list of information? So your production manager did. Oh, okay. Well, we need to change it all completely.
Okay.
It does happen every now and again, but always double checking some of the information is really essential.
Cool. So from that information that you've got, do you draw up any other paperwork from that to make bumping easier?
Yeah, absolutely. Even when working on a show myself, I often do like to. But I always do like an Excel spreadsheet, just like write up a basic patch list.
Yep.
It always kind of follows like a fairly standard formula. And it's basically keeping all the information as clear and concise as possible, basically desk channel, instruments, the microphone involved or DI or whatever. And then, any patch points involved. And it can just show you, all the equipment that you'll need, where everything is plugging into, both, inputs and outputs. Just putting like, any basic little bits of information that might be pertinent to the job. I mean, that's always essential if you're working with, like it's a reasonable size setup. Certainly something like an orchestra or a band. Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
But no, generally I do always like to issue paperwork, especially if it's also more than just me working on the show as well. And when I do generate paperwork and patch lists, I also just like to have a bit of a chat with someone about it as well. I don't just like to go, here's the paperwork, deal with it yourself, bye. Communication is actually a really important part of the job.
Communication's amazing. Is there anything else in pre-production that I may have skipped over?
Oh, arranging hires on the list of tech specs from a client or company. That sometimes if they just have a specific requirement and they're not touring it and we don't have it, then we have to go, well, looks like we'll hire that in. And then that can also be, subject to whether or not there's budget for it as well. So then, often ringing up a hire company, getting quotes, sending that through to production managers, getting it all approved, and then organising, drop-off and return day, all that kind of thing.
Do you have a standard show file that you work from show to show, or do you generally start from scratch and build it up?
Depends on the show. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I do find that it can actually be really, really good just to completely start from scratch.
Yeah.
And also, if there's wacky little things that I've written within a show file, because a show file can kind of go, layer upon layer upon layer. And sometimes there can be like little things that you've written in there and forgotten about. And then you'll go to push up a fader and go, why doesn't it work? It's like, what? And then you have to find the layer at which you've gone, oh, yeah, because I turned that into, it's got a DCA assignment that I haven't written on there, and it's now controlled by that. So effectively it's a dead channel, or it's deallocated, or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it varies. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, or sometimes just the scale of the show as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one thing I haven't asked you about is the sound desk. What brand do you prefer to mix on? Do you have a wide variety of desks that you're quite comfortable on?
There's a reasonable variety of them that I'm quite comfortable on. I mean, there's two in particular, two brands in particular that I use, Yamaha and Digico. I mean, at the moment, I'd say the one I probably use more often than not is a Yamaha CL5. I do like it. It's good. It's reliable. Architecturally, it's really easy to navigate your way through. Sound quality-wise, it's good. It's not amazing, though, and that's where something like the Digico is actually a lot better. Like, the sound quality in that is actually really fantastic. It's incredibly flexible. Like, you can set it up and configure the board however you want. I do really like that console. That's also a really, really nice one. And then there's a couple of other boards I've used by like Allen and Heath. DigiDesign, DigiDesign/Avid. They'd probably be the main ones, though.
Cool. Right, we'll move on from pre-production and into the theatre. So bump-in, got all your paperwork sorted. What does bump-in, how's bump-in look for you?
Usually, walking into the venue, it's like, oh, it's an empty room. Unless of course, the company's using the standard rig, in which case, everything should technically already be set up. However, if there's additional hires, like they want to use a completely different PA, then so often we'll hire that in from another company. We'll set up and configure that, organize any chain motors and things like that. And then also setting up a board out the front. Primarily, precedence usually is taking care of front of house first. So, hanging a PA and setting up a mixing console out in the stalls. And then, once that's done, then it'll be taking care of monitors, so setting up the console and amps, things like that. And then once all that's kind of in, tested, the last thing we look at is setting up the stage. So, once instruments and things are out, then we start running drop boxes, multi-cores. We start, mics out on stands in the appropriate spot on stage, cabling everything up, and then doing things like line check, making sure that both monitors and front of house people have signal, I should say. Once PA and the board out the front is set up, then obviously it's output check to basically all components of the PA. But basically just getting everything's set up. But yeah, kind of in the order of getting front of house, then monitors, then the stage, and then doing line check, and then making sure that everything is in and functioning.
Yeah, you've mentioned a couple of times about a line check and checking outputs and that.
Mm-hmm.
What process do you go through to do a line check or check your outputs are all working?
We'll do inputs first. If we're just we've run our multi-cores out, but none of the instruments or anything is in place, then often it's a good idea to have basically a phantom-powered mic, a microphone that requires 48 volts, and literally plug it into each point on the multi-core in sequential order, and then just talk into it.
Mm-hmm.
Effectively, one person becomes phantom master, and just make sure that phantom power is on all channels, and then it's literally go through, talking to the microphone for each channel, and then once it's complete, that person on stage just has to wait and hear back from the front of house person and the monitor person to say, yes, I'm getting that signal. We're both getting it on the same channel or the same point, or where that person actually expects to see it on their board, and then going from there.
Yep.
Let's say it's a show that's already set up and microphones are already out in front of all the instruments, then it would be literally basically the same deal. You'd get a person on stage just to walk around in the order that they appear on the mixing console, and just talk or have a bit of a chat or tap a microphone and just make sure that everything is appearing and sounds as it should.
Yeah. In the first part of sound check, are you setting rough gains on inputs?
Usually once the correct microphone is in place. Otherwise, when just doing like a basic line check of that's always going to be kind of set to a kind of a really, really basic gain level that's just kind of generic, but not really set to anything. It's just an arbitrary amount to go, well, it's there, it's working, but often it's not necessarily a vocal mic per se. So that can be a little bit misleading, but once the correct microphone is out there, and also, the instrument is in place, or I can actually get a chance to talk to the performer and say, okay, play something for me. And then I'll be able to, once I've made sure that, the microphone is actually in the correct place and hasn't been moved or bumped or whatever, and they can play, that's when I'll actually start setting my gain level. And essentially it's just, make sure it's like it's the Goldilocks rule, not too hot, not too cold. But basically aim for on a digital. Yeah, that's right. The lukewarm. on a digital console, though, I mean, we always try and aim for. I mean, it varies a little bit on manufacturers, but yeah, basically the rule is minus 12 dB. dB full FS, which is dB full scale. That I remember that being basically the equivalent of 0 in the old analog realm.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically that'll still give you 12 dB of headroom. It'll provide you with like a strong nominal signal, and then effectively fader up to 0. But it doesn't, it's not like on the board all faders have to be at 0. It's going to be subject to what actually sounds good, and that's the role of the mixer.
Yeah.
Ultimately, yes, at a nominal level, that's actually providing you with the most electronically efficient nominal signal level, so to speak. So, that's effectively kind of the ruling behind that.
Okay.
Oh, and as far as checking outputs are concerned, as I mentioned before, most digital boards these days just have like a signal generator built in, and you can assign it to channels or just assign the signal straight to an output or whatever. That makes it super easy to just check an output. So, literally at the start of every day, that would be the first thing that I'd lean on is, just once I've fired everything up, switched on all my amps, everything's ready and raring to go. That's the first thing I always check, and just do a signal generator. Basically check all of my outputs, make sure that everything works, have a listen to it, make sure that my system is functioning, and nothing's gone wrong in between the night before and today. That I haven't made any mistakes and gone, oh whoops, I forgot to switch that amp on. Things like that.
Okay. Yeah, no, that works. It's a good routine to get into.
Oh and routine is really, really important.
Yep. Can you give us a rough guide of how you'd set up your desk with groups, effects, DCA, scenes, and that kind of thing?
Well, one thing I am a really, really big advocate of is Actually, like, the old rule of keep it simple, stupid.
Yep. KISS.
Yeah, the KISS.
Yep.
Although basing things I generally do always set up, subject to the size of the show. I do always prefer to have things like vocal groups.
Yep.
Just like a separate vocal group, so that I can, make sure that the vocal, will always have the, the presence and a little, and sometimes a little bit more of a lift that it needs to get over the top of everything else, especially if it's a really noisy band. So that'll always be set a little bit differently to the rest of everything else that's on stage, just because the vocal is always going to be the priority. It's the top of the pyramid. That's going to be the thing that is most important. Effects and things, I always like to have, some reverbs and things. So yeah, there'll always be a dedicated vocal reverb. I'll have a reverb set up for instruments as well, or specific instruments if they're required. Like if there's a particular feature or something in the show that requires like a really, really long reverb or a specific effect, then often that'll have its own effect dedicated to it. I mean, that's one other nice thing about lots of digital boards now, is that you can have like an infinite amount of effects and things, and it's all built into the console instead of having to rely on something that's external to your desk. Yeah, sometimes like a vocal delay as well. That can be helpful. That can be a nice effect. Yeah, subject to the context of the show, that kind of thing. Yeah. DCAs and stuff. Well, I mean, at the very least, I always have a vocal on a DCA. Yeah. That's always, there's always a finger on that one.
Yes.
And generally each instrument as well. I do actually really like mixing off of DCAs. They're just, a really, really great way to simplify bands and orchestras and that kind of thing, just so it's collecting all your channels into just like a few faders.
That's actually probably a nice definition of what a DCA is. Yeah.
Your faders are still doing everything they're supposed to, but the DCA is just acting as an overriding controller, like a fading mute, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always vocals. Each instrument, I also kind of like to put effects and things on DCAs as well. So of course, get to the end of a song, get rid of the vocal reverb.
Yep.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, scenes, I do kind of like to keep it simple.
Yeah.
Like I said, unless it's a musical, I kind of like to keep them as minimal as possible. And even then, when I do a musical, I try not to over program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about mute groups? Do you use mute groups at all?
Mute groups are not in a show. I tend to use mute groups if I'm walking away from my board. So, like, lunch and dinner breaks, that kind of thing, I think they're really, really useful then. So, and I always like to, put things like radios or vocals on a mute group, or in some cases, I just like to go all inputs on a mute group or all outputs on a mute group. And the reason why I split them up is because it means that if I need to be able to mute everything on the stage, then I can just go mute all inputs, but still leave the PA running so I can play, some pre-show music, or I just want to jump on a microphone and then, make an announcement or just test my PA. Then I haven't muted absolutely everything. I've just kind of selectively muted everything that's on stage. So, yeah.
No, that's fine. That works. If you like what you're listening to, check out my Facebook page, Unseen Theatrics, for more show notes and links, sharing education of live theatre. With the festivals and that go on at the festival centre, they're not all one-day gigs in and out in a day.
No, that's right.
So you go through some tech runs and dress runs and that. What do you do during tech runs?
I mean, dependent on the show, make any adjustments, changes to scripts and things, and write in any cues, or take care of any automation or programming, things like that. Yeah, work out what stage requirements or mic moves, things like that. If the monitor person has to make any changes, adjustments, or physical changes and adjustments to anything out there on stage, just make notes. Just basically make it so that the show becomes kind of as seamless and easy as possible.
Your notes, are you a digital person with notes, or are you very much pen and paper?
Pen and paper, yeah. For a script, I've never actually done one like off of an iPad.
Okay.
I have worked with plenty of people that have.
Yep.
But yeah, I've never really used my iPad for that. It's always been a case of print out the script and then, draw all over it in often in coloured pens or coloured Sharpies or whatever.
Yep.
And I mean, yeah, I probably should start, using iPads and things. But no, I often just find it a lot quicker and easier to just quickly doodle and scribble notes. Yeah.
During this time, do you get any feedback from people about what you're doing with the mix or with the sound?
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, usually there's like a director or technical manager or a representative from the band or something.
Yep.
Not so much during sound check. That's usually, kind of just time for us. But yeah, once we actually start rehearsing, that's when we do. And I mean, sometimes it can be really, really helpful to have a chat to them and just say, all right, look, you live and work with the band. I mean, you know what they're supposed to sound like, especially if I'm unfamiliar with the band and their music or just like the context of the show or something. Often it's a really good idea to have a chat to them and just say, all right, look, so tell me about the band, like, what's the context? Do you want more of a jazzy feel, or do you actually want it to be like, quite loud and prominent, more of like a rock type show? Or like, tell me about the style with which you want me to mix. Are there specific like effects that are required? Just basically tell me as much information as you can. I mean, in some cases, people are just happy to just go, no, just do whatever you want. But sometimes there are people that, will actually have, oh, no, we're actually really specific. We want X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And it's fine. Then it's just, just trying to make sure that their needs are met. I don't think I've had too many weird and wacky requests over the years.
Yep. How closely do you work with the artist, whether they be your spoken or musos or whatever else you get on that stage?
Sometimes, we can have a lot of interaction with the artist. Sometimes it can actually be a little bit minimal. It can really just be, engage in pleasantries, hellos, goodbyes, hey, how's it goings, and not much more than that. But every now and again, there'll be artists that I work really, really closely with, and some that I actually, really enjoy working with as well. I've worked with repeated times. Yeah, which can be, actually really wonderful.
Cool. All right. Does much change during dress run?
Depends on the show. Like, I mean, I've worked on some theatre shows and things. Well, like, even in dress run, the director will turn around and go, oh yeah, that bit's cut, that's gone. That song's gone. We're not doing that song anymore, which, is totally fine. Then it's just, being flexible to what they want to do. Not so much in a dress run, but on a performance for musicals and things, there'll be an actor that's off sick, and so there'll be a swing, a replacement, and so it's then doctoring things to make it suit.
Can you just expand on that a little bit? If an actor does get sick and there is a swing, what checks do you need to do with that swing to make sure it all works seamlessly?
Usually they'll have often the swing will have their own dedicated microphone.
Yep.
But often they'll just wind up wearing the same pack. But then, just making sure that they actually, they're comfortable, that they actually get an opportunity to come out and actually, you can actually hear a little bit of it, which is always really, really helpful. So you can actually judge, okay, so the person that they're replacing, like how evenly matched is it going to be, so that I then don't have to go and totally reprogram the board to actually make the show work. I can actually go, all right, well, they're going to be at approximately the same level. They're going to sound approximately the same. I'm going to EQ them so that they sound, as they should, or appropriate, or, pleasant, or whatever. And then, then I can actually mix the show and make sure that, that channel will then appear where it should. It will sound as it should, so that, the show can basically continue as it normally would, but with a completely different person in a role. Yeah, it does require like a little bit of fine-tuning and changing stuff, but fortunately, I mean, certainly for the case of musicals and things, people do usually kind of have that in the back of their mind, and they do always have something that's flexible and amenable and easy to change.
So that's built into the programming of the sound desk when they're putting the show together.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, yeah, fortunately, a lot of digital consoles also make it really, really easy to just, replace a channel. You can just go, well, okay, fine. I actually want that to appear on that channel where normally I can replace it with something and then just make it go through the whole show. Or you can do in some cases what's called like a recall safe or a focus or something where you can just go, okay, I want this to now just affect every scene for the rest of the show. Program done. Okay, now it's always going to be there, and I don't have to go through like 170 cues and change everything. Fortunately, a lot of manufacturers have made programming easier and a bit more flexible. Yeah, which is a really, really good thing.
All right, let's talk about a show day for a running season. When do you get to the venue? What checks do you do? Run me through a show day, a standard show day.
I mean, it depends on the context of the show. Like, if it was a musical, it would be around about sometimes 2.5 hours before the show. But if it was just like a band or theatre piece or whatever, then it would probably just be more like an hour and a half before the show.
Okay.
Let's go with like the musical option.
Yeah.
So that would essentially be coming in, powering everything up.
Yep.
Front of house person would do complete system check.
Yeah.
So make sure they've got signal coming out of everything, which they can do with signal generator, pink noise, and all music.
Yep.
Just making sure that everything works everywhere.
I know you can hear it, but do you physically have someone there at the speaker as well if there's foldback or effect speakers as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a good idea too. And I mean, at the very least, if you know what it sounds like in a particular location, like, you can be like a reasonable distance away from it. And, if you fire it up and it sounds a bit wrong or weird, but, preferably the environment is quiet and you know what to expect.
Yeah, okay.
Then, you don't necessarily have to be in front of it. However, that said, there's a lot of touring musicals and things that I've worked on where it's like, no, seriously, dude, I want you to walk around and have a listen to every speaker. Surrounds, go upstairs, out into the auditorium. I want you to listen to everything. And, fair enough. I mean, that's just like a consistency and a quality control thing. And I mean, they're just like, this is our routine. This is what we just want to do.
Yeah.
Like I said, the routine is really, really important. Just making sure that, your checklist is gone through, making sure it's all complete. Yeah. So making sure that everything works. Monitors, they've fired up the console, fired up their amps. They've checked all their monitors, any in-ears and things like that. While that's happening, there'd often be like a radio person that would be batterying up and testing all radio mics, and then often they would go to the front of house person. Either the whole bucket would go to the front of house person, and then they can check them again, so they can just check any EQing or any stuff like that. Or alternately, the person on stage just brings them out, talks into every mic one by one, has a listen. Yes, everything is working. There's no faults, no breaks, no weird and wacky things, no sweat deaths that have happened from the night before, things like that. Once that's done, then the radio mic people would start waiting for performers to start getting into costume, wigs, makeup, all that other stuff, and they'd start sticking radio mics on everyone. Oh yeah, after house is open, like at about the half-hour mark. Yeah, hopefully by that stage, performers have actually started coming up onto stage and just going to the radio bench and having a chat with the radio operator and doing all the radio mic checks.
Yep. So you do another check with the actual performer that it still sounds good and still okay?
The radio person definitely would.
Yes.
Front of house person, not so much so. They'd kind of leave it to the radio person. And I mean, if they are having any problems, then the radio person hopefully will pick it up and just, say, oh, hang on a sec. Yeah, we've actually got a problem with a mic here. I don't know. Performers gone to the toilet and yanked the cable out or something, or they've broken it, they've gotten it wet, they've gotten makeup into it.
Yep.
They've stuff that we just have to change their mic over. And then usually once that's happened, then they do get in touch with the front of house person and say, okay, look, here's the change that we've made. Just have a listen to it out the front. So usually they'll be on a pair of headphones. They'll be PFLing or basically soloing the channel, and they'll just be hearing it through that set of headphones. So they can go, yep, it sounds pretty much the same.
Yeah.
That's really good. Thanks for fixing that. Away we go.
Yep.
Oh, actually, earlier, another check that usually takes place around the time when monitors and things like that. Often it's a good idea to run around, check comms and things as well, especially radio comms. That kind of thing's usually not a good idea to leave that to chance. And any cue lights as well, things like that. They're always good.
And I guess the cameras come into that same category as well.
They would as well, absolutely. So any vision requirements, things like that, making sure the monitors and cameras and everything is switched on, they're working. Once all of the performers' radio mics have all been checked, usually there's 2 different types of communication. Usually one type of communication I'm a really, really big fan of is basically just having 2 computers set up with something like Skype or an instant messaging program.
Yes, I've heard of Radio World by Nemesis, I think.
Nemesis, that's the one. That's actually another really good Apple bit of software that's actually worthy of note that I forgot to mention before. Is just have 2 computers set up with a simple network between them, and then you can literally quietly type messages to one another. Front of house person doesn't need to be on cans, nor does the radio person, so they're constantly having to take headphones off or comms off to talk to one another. It's just a quick type of a message and you get all the information that you need. So then, clearance would be given to the stage manager just to say, yes, we have, all of our performers are mic'd up and everyone's been checked and everyone's ready and raring to go. And then the front of house person also gets notification as well to say, yep, everyone's here. Everyone's tested, we're ready and raring to go. And then shortly after that, the show begins. That's usually at about 5-ish minute mark, subject to, how tardy the actors are.
Yep. Okay. How about, do you start a show? You've just mentioned about taking comms on and off during the show, and it's not ideal. Do you stay on comms, get off comms? When do you about take your comms off and just listen to the show?
Really depends on the type of show. I mean, musicals and bands and stuff, as soon as basically we've been given clearance, that's usually, and I've talked to the stage manager and said, everything's ready and raring to go. That would be the point at which I'd take comms off. I'd usually kind of like to stay on for the very start of the show to hear the stage manager saying, okay, we're going. Here's the first cue, everyone's doing this, or, if there's a cue to get rid of some house music or whatever. If there's a specific cue that starts the show that the stage manager's calling, then obviously I'll be on cans for that. And then, I'll jump off cans as soon as possible. But for something like a theatre show or something where it's, like a QLab heavy show or something like that, I'll just stay on comms the entire time because the stage manager's calling the shots for every cue that has to be fired. But bands and musicals, I'm off as quickly as possible. So I can actually listen to the show and just kind of mix it and do my job. And most of the time I'm reading a script, so I know when my cues need to be.
Okay, cool. I hope you're enjoying today's episode, and if you are, spread the word. Let everyone know about Unseen Theatrics, sharing education of live theatre. Kind of mentioned it here and there. How do you deal with problems that may arise during a show?
Sometimes it depends on the actual context of the show. Like, if it's a theatre/musical piece, say their microphone does, we have to wait until they come off stage before we can actually fix them. Or if it's something like a rock show or a band show, it's not so bad. You can kind of get away with just marching out on stage to fix a mic that's been knocked over or something. And it's kind of acceptable, so to speak.
People are kind of used to seeing stage people on stage for bands and that.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of acceptable. It's not great, but it's like, it's a forgivable sin. Like in a musical or a theatre piece, it's like, oh, no. That's, totally. It's contextual. I've worked on many musicals or things where people have been mic'd up and, connector's busted, it's come loose or something. So, hopefully when they come off, and it's usually getting in touch with the radio person or the stage manager just to let them know and say, hey, look, I'm having a problem with performer X, how long is it before they come off? And then when they come off, the radio people would jump on them, try and fix the problem, stick a new microphone, check their pack, whatever, check it at their end, and then by the time they go on again, hopefully, the problem's been rectified. But every now and again, it's horrible when you're out the front, someone's mic is starting to die, and it's the start of a really long scene. And things like that just happen sometimes. And all you can do is just kind of grit your teeth and bear it, because it's like, it's a technical failure. There's nothing I can do about it. Well, I mean, in some cases, it's literally just turn them down a lot or off, depending on what the fault is. Like if it's, a busted connector that's going bang, crack, bang, then it's a good idea to just take them out completely. And then also everyone else on mics, it's a good idea to kind of dip them down a little bit. Often it's one thing I'm a big fan of as well is also having some if I can get away with it, having a bunch of shotgun mics and things. Just so that you can kind of like bring up an ambient level of the stage so you can kind of cover everyone that way. Sometimes it's not always applicable, but
that's just shotguns down the front of the stage.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Just so that it's providing something instead of, okay, I've completely turned off that actor and now I can't hear them at all.
Yeah.
That'll be affected a little bit, by like the size of the venue, that kind of thing. But yeah, just kind of compensating and changing things so that they work. I mean, in some cases on, really important shows or the larger scale musicals and things, lead performers often will have two radio mics on them.
Okay.
Like they'll have a main and a backup.
Yeah.
So that if one dies, they can just switch to the other one.
Yeah.
For bands and things, for people with like, handheld radio mics and things, I'm always a big fan of sticking a hardwired microphone down the front, just coil up on a really long lead, shove it underneath the wedge, and we just tell the lead performer, in the event that your microphone dies, just put it down, pick up that hardwired mic, and just keep going. And look, it has happened. I've actually had a number of shows where the radio mics just died. It's just, and in some cases, like a performer's dropped the radio mic, picked it up again, and then gone, oh, it's not working. And that's at that stage, they just go, oh, wait, hang on, there's a hardwired mic. I'll just carry on with this. Yeah, it does happen. Yeah, Murphy's Law. Sometimes stuff just breaks or it just craps out for seemingly no apparent reason. Or you'll go, oh, it stopped working. Carry it off stage. Look at it. Oh, it seems to be working now. Okay. And then you try and get it to fault again. Of course it's not going to fault again.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, cool. So you try and build in some redundancies where possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, test everything as much as you can before any show. And I mean, that's part of like, the checklists and everything is like, check absolutely everything. Like, on radios, it's always a good idea to, when you battery up, do the wiggle test, check your mics, check antenna, check reception, all that stuff. Because I mean, they always take a beating. They're subject to like, moisture, sweat. People will lie on top of them. They'll sit on them.
Yeah.
Little things really do take a beating. So yeah, I'm a big stickler for testing the hell out of them.
Yeah, that's a good thing. You've given some good tips there. I don't think there's anything else during a show that I've missed.
During the show, just try not to stuff up, really. Listen to the stage manager for all cues. Certainly, yeah, if you're on comms or, if the performer's giving you any cues, like, set list.
Yep.
And they've got, specific requirements for any specific effect, or if there's specific songs where there's, one person's, playing an instrument in one song and not the other.
Yeah.
Like, case in point, I don't know, like a bass player switching from like a double bass to an electric and they don't have like a mute pedal, then it's a good idea to remember, for this song, mute the double bass, make the electric live, that kind of thing. Things like that. Yeah, basically paying attention, doing the best job you can.
Yeah, totally. All right. What pack up do you need to do after a show, on a show day?
On a show day, collect any radio mics.
Yep.
Deep battery, just make sure they're clean, everything's put away, anything that's, I don't know, kind of valuable on stage. I mean, I always like to collect all radio mics and bring them off stage.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any changeover into, like, I don't know, for let's say like a music festival or something, just in case there's like, one band on stage that finishes the night and then the following night there's another band in, then we will, clear the stage of, all radio mics, push any instruments or risers out of the way.
Yep.
Yeah, just make sure that we're kind of prepped and ready as best we can be for what's up the following day. Just check any paperwork, have stuff set aside so that, we can change into that other act really easily.
Yep. If it's a long-standing show, do you save your show file each day?
I do like to save the show every day simply because, well, it's like the file's generally tiny.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't matter. So, yeah, sometimes it is a good idea just so that you've got like, a running record or, if something weird and wacky does happen, then you can kind of look back and go, oh, yeah, what did happen? Or, if you've made like a programming change or something that, could actually be quite useful.
Okay.
For something like a band or something, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, yeah, it's just usually the scene based on the band, and that's kind of it. All changes and things I kind of make up on the fly.
Yeah. Now we move into bump out. What do you do at bump out?
Well, so it's basically pack up everything, return to standard rig. So yeah, it's get rid of any hired in equipment. So make sure that that's all packed down, collect and ready and raring for the hire company to either pick up that night or the following day. And if it's the following day, if you're not in the following day, making sure that it's actually in a known location for someone else to take care of it. Account for any breakages. Leave a note. See if they can be sent off for repairs or whatever. I mean, it's usually just leave a detailed list of what is actually broken and then, basically leave it aside to be dealt with the following day because no one's going to deal with it at like 12 o'clock at night.
Yep.
I'd say any paperwork that would need to be done, preferably like charge sheets or anything, consumables, just like tapes, batteries, all that kind of thing, because they usually production coordinators want to resolve that stuff as quickly as possible.
Yep.
However, if there are any breakages, then often that needs to be included on a charge sheet as well.
Yep.
Usually that's notifying production managers and things like that as well.
Yep.
Then it's really just put everything away, make sure it goes back where everything is supposed to, return to a standard rig, and then possibly sometimes an email out to, I don't know, like bosses or production coordinators to say there was a problem with, or the show ran overtime, so now everyone's bump out had to be delayed, and so people will just need to be paid overtime. Things like that. Really just notification and clearing things up. But really just it really comes down to communication if there's weird and wacky things that have happened. Because if you don't tell people and then production coordinators or your superiors go, wait, hang on, you were rostered for this, but it's this now? What? Okay, can you tell me what's going on? Instead of them chasing you, you just let them know, and then usually it's fine. So communication,
Okay, cool. So that's bump out wrapped up.
Yep.
Is that the end of your responsibilities? Do you have any other post-production responsibilities after the finished in the theatre?
Not really, no. I mean, it's really. I mean, some of that bump out stuff can spill over into the following day, subject to the way the event's been scheduled.
Okay. Any tips or tricks that you could pass on to people that may want to get into this industry?
Yeah, like having a calm, reasonably calm, friendly attitude. Being like, positive and proactive. That goes a really, really long way. And look, starting out, you don't have to know everything, but having an eagerness to learn and also finding the right time to just, say to someone, that you're attached with or whatever, look, hey, tell me about this. I want to learn about it. But obviously, if you can see that they're trying to find a problem with something, then it's probably not a great time to actually start bugging them. But staying flexible and, being resourceful. So being able to, change and, last minute requests for things and going, oh, okay, well, we don't have that, but we can substitute this or change this or make this work or, things like that. Being a good communicator and, having getting paperwork done. You've got like a decent patch list or you can, pass on information to people so that they can get the work done. From a technical standpoint, I'd say now more than ever, having network skills is actually really, really important. Having a degree of IT skills does actually go a really, really long way now.
Yeah.
But so much sound stuff now has become audio over IP.
Yeah.
Everything follows that rule now. So, I mean, most devices are plug and play, but it really does help to understand the way that networks work and certain types of topologies and all that kind of thing. Because, it's completely different now. You really never stop learning in this job. It's like, new technologies come out, stuff changes. And it's kind of, it's fascinating. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, I think that kind of wraps it up, Mick. Thank you much for being a part of today's episode of Unseen Theatrics.
Oh, no problem at all. Thank you, Clinton.